spoken of in the Bible. That's what this paper is about, but also about what the real origin of white supremacy and racism really is, because it may not be exactly what you think it is. All right, so first we'll start off with some background information. According to the Judeo-Christian faith, there was a worldwide flood and a man named Noah with his wife, his 3 sons, their wives, and 2 of every animal that was pleasing in the Lord's sight. Now, the purpose of the flood was to cleanse the world of the chaos caused by the fallen angels. You ever heard of the Watchers? You ever seen the movie? What was it? The Watchers? Well, basically, there were about 200 fallen angels, or 200 angels who made a decision that they were going to mate with the women on earth, with the daughters of Adam. So with the different women on earth, they mated with them, and then the gene pool of the human race became corrupted. And this is where giants come from. This is where some other things come from too. But when the fallen angels came, they presented the knowledge of a few different things. They taught people how to do abortions. They taught about astrology. They taught about warcraft. They taught about money. They taught about the making and setting of curses and rules. So when they taught these things, man's mind became perverted, and all he knew about was evil. All men knew about was how to do evil, and the thoughts of his heart were evil continually. So after this happened, there was Enoch. He's the one where a lot of this information is coming from in the beginning of this right here. Enoch was the grandfather or great-grandfather of Noah. Now Enoch's son was Methuselah, which his name means that his death marks the judgment. And Methuselah, showing how merciful God is, he ended up being the oldest living man in the history of the world at 969 years old. But when Methuselah passed, his grandson, Noah, was alive. Now, Noah's father was Jared. When Jared had Noah, when his wife had Noah, he was scared because his son came out white as snow with eyes like the sun that were super bright. He didn't know what was going on, so he went to the Most High to see what was going on because he was scared. I'm like, where does the white baby come from? But God told him, okay, it's your kid. Don't be scared. And this lets us know one thing, that Noah was albino. So when Noah had his 3 sons, some people believe that all 3 of his sons were a different race. I personally believe that all 3 of Noah's sons were actually black. And then I'll show you how the different races came from there, but it's going to be more of an emphasis on the line of Shem this time. So after Noah and his sons got off the ark, giants did come back into the world through the offspring, through the wives of his 3 sons. He had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now there's a common misconception that all black people come from Ham, all white people come from Japheth, and all Asians and whatnot come from Shem. But really, if you look at the Zondervan Bible Dictionary, it'll say that Ham, the progenitor of the dark races, but not the Negroes. See, one of the biggest misconceptions in the world today that's been propagated through white supremacy is that the Middle East isn't Africa. But until the Suez Canal was made, and around that time and until recent history, it's been just a common knowledge that the Middle East was just Northeast Africa. And until the time around where people started mixing in, and the Romans started taking over, that area was just as dark as Africa was. Okay, so we're going to go into this right here is the origin of white supremacy. It is in Genesis chapter 25. I can just tell you what it is, though, but you can find it if you want to. I'm sure y'all have all day. All right. There were 2 nations in the womb of Rebekah. Rebekah was the wife of Isaac. She couldn't have a child. She was barren, just like many of the matriarchs of the Bible. She was barren, so God gifted her and allowed her to have a child with her husband. And when she was with child, she went to the Lord and said, she was having so many problems and pains with her pregnancy. She was like, if it's a blessing, why am I thus? Why am I going through all this struggle if it's such a blessing for me to have this miracle child? But then God told her that two nations and two manner of people in your womb, and the older will serve the younger. So when the children were born, they were fighting in the womb, trying to have a place of being the top tier, trying to be the one who's the top dog. And the one who got out first was Enoch. I mean, not Enoch, Esau. And Esau was red like a hairy garment. Now, this is actually the origin of the Caucasian people. And no one had to say, because he was red all over. If you ever been to a nursery, then you've seen that all the newborn Caucasian babies are red all over. Now, no one had to say what color Jacob was, because it's just common knowledge that everybody back then was of the same, the same persuasion. So after this happened, Esau was a profane man. And all he cared about was things of the world. He wasn't a spiritual man at all. All he cared about was hunting, eating, and doing things that a fleshly person would do. But Jacob was more of a spiritual person, more of a thinking man. Well, it was already prophesied that the younger person, the younger one, would have the birthright. But Isaac still wanted to give Esau the birthright. But when Esau came back from hunting, and what really happened is that he was hunting Nimrod and he killed him. But when he came back from hunting, he was scared to death because he thought somebody was about to come kill him, and because he was starving. So he sold his birthright to Jacob for a morsel of meat, or red pottage, or some rare meat, as can be defined. So when he sold his birthright to Jacob, afterwards, when it was time for him to receive the blessing from his father, Jacob went into his tent with goat's hair on him. And if you know, goat's hair is straight. But Jacob, his hair was woolly. Like my hair would be woolly. But Jacob's hair was woolly, so he put goat's hair on him and pretended to be Esau. When he received the blessing, Esau found out, and he was so mad about it. And this is where white supremacy began. He was so upset that he couldn't get the blessing. Because in the old custom, the older brother would receive a double portion, and then the rest of them would get an even portion of what belonged to the father. So when Jacob received that blessing, Esau felt like he was tricked. And I would feel the same way. When I look at it, I'm like, man, that was kind of sneaky. But it was already prophesied and ordained that Jacob was going to be the one to receive that double portion. So when Jacob received it, Esau vowed in his heart that he was going to kill Jacob. He hated him with all that he had. So after Esau made that vow in his heart, after his father died, he was going to kill him. His father, he was begging his father, give me a blessing. You have no blessing for me? But Isaac told him, let's see, this is part of it. By your sword you shall live, and your brother shall... Okay. Behold, away from the fertility of the earth shall be your dwelling, and away from the dew of the heaven from above, which means that his initial inhabitants would be in the mountains. That's why Caucasus Mountains, but its original inheritance was Mount Seir. Then they migrated up to the Caucasus Mountains. And away from the dew of the heaven from above, by a sword you shall live, and your brother shall serve you, but it shall come about when you become restless, that you will break his yoke from off your neck. So this is what happened during the Roman Empire. During the Roman Empire, the Caucasians came from out the Caucasus Mountains and took the lands of Europe away from the people who were the original inhabitants of Europe, and took over the lands of Europe. And after this happened, it was in 70 AD. Well, different things happened. But in 70 AD was the last time the Israelites were in Israel. They ran out. And where did they ran? Where everybody in the Bible ran to. They ran to Africa. They were in a place in Western Africa called Negro Land. Now, when they ran out of there, they went to a place called Negro Land, and below Negro Land were the Grain Coast, the Gold Coast, and the Slave Coast. And if you look on a 1747 map, right in the middle of the Slave Coast was the Kingdom of Judah, which is the tribe that Jesus came from. It's something a lot of people don't know. So after this happened in 700 AD, the people up around the Caucasus Mountains area, around Turkey and modern day, not Poland, but in modern day Turkey, around that area, there's these people called Khazars. These people were surrounded, and there's Edomites, all right, so let me not get that confused. Now, these people were surrounded by the Catholics coming from the west, and they were surrounded by Muslims coming from the south. So instead of converting to Catholicism or converting to Islam, they decided that they wanted to convert to Judaism. But instead of converting to true Judaism, which would lead to serving Jesus, they decided they wanted to convert to Talmudic and Kabbalah Judaism, which is the most evil religion in the world. It's basically Luciferian. Pretty much everything leads back to Luciferian if it isn't worshiping Jesus, even if it's called, Christianity, or even if it isn't, Judaism, all of it, it'll lead back to it. So when this happened, they took on that identity and used that to get favor from people all over the world. And they used that to take that blessing. Esau got the blessing back, and they took it and broke the yoke that his brother had over his neck, and then took what he felt was rightfully his. But this part has also happened in Rome. Now, how do we know who the true Hebrews are? Now, if you look at Deuteronomy 28, 15 through 68, you'll see the curse of the law. Now, the Hebrews rejected Jesus, and they didn't follow the law. No one could follow the law. But because they kept themselves under the law, they ended up suffering from the curse of the law. Every single one of those things. No other people has been taken to slavery in ships but the people known as African Americans here in America. So no one else. And they were taken specifically from the kingdom of Judah. Now there's a conspiracy of nations in Psalm 83. And in Psalms 83, it explains the people who conspired against Israel to make them not a people. The first of them was the tabernacles of Edom. And that's the tabernacles of Edom are the Caucasians. It was also the Ishmaelites, which are the Arabs, the Moabites and the Hagarenes, Gebal and Ammon, I believe those are people around the area of Germany, Amalek, which are the false Jews. And they come from Edom. They come from Esau, but they're separate people. And Tyre and Sidon, people around the area of the Middle East. Midianites and Sisera and Jabin and Kissim, but there's a lot of people. So people think, if you ever, hear the history books and you get mad and you're like, if Africans were sold into slavery, why would Africans sell Africans into slavery? Anybody ever thought that before?
Yeah.
Because they didn't sell Africans. They didn't sell the people into slavery. Hamites sold Shemites.
And it wasn't a part of their...
Wasn't their people. Because they knew that they were cursed. So because they knew that they were cursed, he said, we're going to get them off the land because it was jealousy. See, what people don't understand is that the entire history of this world and the history of the Bible is first and foremost about Jesus. So don't get that misconstrued. Because there are many people who will tell you this, but then they'll tell you some stuff that's not true, like white people can't be saved. That's ridiculous. Anybody who gives their heart to Jesus can be saved. But that does not take away the historical value of what's in this book. Because it's never been proven wrong. Now, if anyone says that it doesn't matter what race someone is, or that that's not in the New Testament because we're not under the law, then you'll look at Revelation 2:9. Revelation 2:9 says, I know they work in thy tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich, and I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but of the synagogue of Satan. That's the Kabbalah worship and the Talmudic Judaism that the Khazars do, which are the people known as Jews today. Because it also says in the Bible that the Jews won't be back in Israel until Jesus comes back. Jesus obviously isn't back. So those aren't the people. And the thing is that, it's not about hating anyone. Certain people have a propensity to do certain things. Because when the people, the Pharisees, which a lot of them were really not real Jews, not all of them though, because Paul was a Pharisee, but when they said to him, we know our fathers did it, but we're not our fathers. We didn't do it. We know our fathers killed the prophets, but we didn't do it. Well, Jesus said, you are of your father. So if you look at your history and you know your bloodline, you know what people in your family did. If you know your family had slavery in your history and you say, I'm not them, so I didn't do it, so it's fine. Well, if you benefit from it, you did do it. But guess what? If you get adopted by Jesus, then you have a new father. My forefathers, Hebrews, they betrayed God. They left him. They always hoard after other guys. They always murmured and complained. And unless we receive the salvation, then everybody will be lost. But you're still of your fathers. So one thing we have to understand is the Hebrews, the true Hebrews were put into darkness until the fullness of the Gentiles were brought in. And after everybody in the world had the opportunity to receive Jesus freely, then Hebrews are being restored back to their rightful place to be a holy nation in front of the world, show them God. But everybody has an opportunity to know it. There should be something else on here. Now, there's also DNA evidence if you don't want to believe what I'm saying. Okay? It's called the E1B1A haplogroup. Because sometimes you have to come at people with the Bible, with the history, and also with the genetics, because people are I'm just that's what makes it funny. Yeah. Wait a second. I'm just seeing what's on here. Oh yeah, this is the important part. This is why you need to make sure, first and foremost, that you say, this is right here is why you need to make sure that you check yourself and make sure you don't have racism in your heart. Because if you have white supremacy in your heart, understand that that's the spirit of the Antichrist. And there's something that's going to come out of that. Okay, let me find this book real quick. Joel is into the New Testament. Oh, bear with me. As I find it, I got these little tabs on here. Here we go, Joel. In Joel chapter 3. It says, behold, in those days, in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem. So we're scattered to all four corners of the earth. All the corners of the earth, my people were put into slavery, but especially the tribe of Judah. And that's where the slave trade is. If you look at a map of Negro land, the 1747 map of Africa, and then you see the kingdom of Judah is right where the slave coast was. Negro land is full of Hebrew. Below it was the Grain Coast, Gold Coast, and the Slave Coast. The Slave Coast is where Judah was. For behold, in those days, and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, I also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat and will plead with them for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and part of my land. So what they're saying right here, what God is saying right here, is that he will plead with the people, plead with the nations, because it wasn't just white people. It wasn't just the Africans who did it. It was pretty much the whole world was against Israel because people hated God. And because they hated God, they couldn't get to him. What do you do when you can't get to someone who you hate? You hate who they love. And you hurt them. But it was our fault, though, because we didn't abide in his love. We didn't do what we were supposed to do in the first place. So the curse of the law came upon us, and there's some terrible things. I'll get to that a little bit. I won't get too much into that. But he said, let's see. Okay. And they have cast lots for my people and have given a boy for a harlot and stole the girl for wine that they might drink. See, people don't realize that one of the biggest parts of slavery wasn't just somebody picking cotton. A big part of it was the sex slave trade. So much of it was raping men, women, children. There was a lot of wicked stuff going on. There were babies. You ever heard of gator bait? That's when they would take a black baby and tie him on a rope and use him as bait to catch alligators. And they would do something called breaking the buck, when there would be new slaves coming onto a plantation. And then they would take the strongest man who's coming onto the plantation, and then they'll take the strongest man there, or the master himself will come and rape that man in front of his family. And what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Sidon, and all the coasts of Palestine? Will you render me recompense? See, they try to act self-righteous about it. See, there's people in Egypt said, see, the reason why people are hated over Israel isn't because they're Israelites. They're not hated for that. They're hated because they're the wrongful people. It's like you have a house and someone who you don't know just comes to your place and says, hey, that's your room now. You're going to feel some type of way. It's just going to happen. You can't just come to my house and say, this your house now. But we gotta understand is that part of what's going on is that there's Edomites and there's Amalekites. Amalekites are the false Jews. Those are the ones who are over all media in the world. Those are the ones who own the corporations, Rockefellers and Rothschilds. Those false Jews are the ones who are over all of Hollywood, and they fund things that make Israelites look bad, and they do it to promote hate between races. So a lot of times during the slave trade, the false Jews, the Amalekites, would fund slavery they would buy the slave ships, they would buy the plantations, they even bought white people, Caucasians, out of prisons in Europe and brought them over to America so that they could have plantations. So it promotes hate between us, but it's not about hate. All right, I'm okay. Okay. But okay, the children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have he sold them to the Grecians, that ye might remove them far from their border. Behold, I will rise them out of the place whither ye have sold them, and will return your recompense unto your own head. So basically, we'll be raised up where we've been sold to. So that's going to be here. And I will sell your sons and your daughters into the hand of the children of Judah. They shall sell them to the Sabians, to a people far off, for the Lord hath spoken it. So what we have to understand is that if we don't fix these things and make God our new father, then the children of the Caucasians will be sold into slavery. So this is what we got to understand. This is not me saying this. This is what the Bible says. So we have to get this stuff together. Don't let somebody trick you. All right? Don't let somebody trick you into making you think that you're all right. Nobody's all right beside God. And we all have stuff. And if we don't get this stuff right with him, then we're going to have to pay for the stuff we did. Not only the stuff we did, but the stuff our forefathers did. All right? All right. Cool. I mean, I guess that's good for
that. Thank you very much. You reminded me of my college years. I wanted to please my teacher, and